The terrible downside of climbing Everest nobody talks about. As the world marvels at the sheer audacity of those who conquer Everest, an unsettling reality emerges from the shadows. Journey with us to unmask the hidden perils, physical and mental tolls, and the devastating aftermath that are all part of the terrible downside of climbing the majestic Mount Everest. In this thought-provoking video, I am going to shed light on a topic that is often ignored or brushed aside when discussing the conquest of Mount Everest. While climbing the world's highest peak has long been regarded as a remarkable achievement, it is crucial to examine the ethical implications and the detrimental effects of commercial climbing in the present day. With my insider knowledge of the industry and the mountain, I feel compelled to share the truth about the dark side of Everest, its impact on the environment, and the sacrifices made by the local workforce. Join me as we delve into the sensitive issues surrounding high-altitude mountaineering and reflect upon the true worth of this endeavor. From an outsider's perspective, witnessing someone standing atop one of the world's highest mountains can be awe-inspiring. However, a closer look at the modern methods of climbing Everest reveals a different story. Most climbers who attempt Everest today are not seasoned mountaineers, but individuals who pay exorbitant sums of money for guided expeditions. They rely heavily on fixed lines and the assistance of the local workforce, while contributing little in terms of actual climbing. This outsourcing of technical and perilous tasks diminishes the significance of their accomplishment. Furthermore, this style of commercial climbing leaves behind a trail of trash, human waste, and unfortunately, even the remains of deceased climbers. In the current year alone, 17 lives were lost on the mountain, highlighting the devastating consequences of this approach. The realization that climbing Everest in 2023 comes at a great cost raises important questions about its ethical implications and whether it truly deserves our admiration. It is essential to explore the sensitive aspects of high-altitude mountaineering to form a well-rounded perspective on this matter. One of the key concerns revolves around the local workforce, particularly the Sherpas, who play a crucial role in the success of commercial expeditions. These individuals take on the most dangerous and physically demanding tasks, such as fixing ropes and ladders through treacherous sections like the Khumbu Icefall. Despite the higher-than-average wages they receive, they often lack insurance coverage, putting their lives at risk. Disturbingly, if a Sherpa loses their life, their family typically receives a meager payout of around $10,000 from life insurance. This sum barely covers the basic needs of a small family in Nepal and fails to reflect the true value of a human life. The stark reality is that climbing Everest in its current state involves sacrificing the lives of local workers, a fact that cannot be ignored. The tragic events of this year further emphasize the toll that Everest takes on both clients and the local workforce. 3 Sherpas from the Imagine Nepal Tourism Company lost their lives when a serac collapsed in the Khumbu Icefall. These Sherpas were instrumental in fixing lines and ensuring safe passage for climbers. Another devastating incident involved Purba Sherpa, a soldier in the Nepali army, who died during a cleanup operation to remove trash at Camp 4. These incidents and others like them highlight the grave risks faced by the local workforce, often without adequate recognition or support. It is disheartening to observe that, while attention is given to incidents such as theft, disputes over rescue fees, or controversial actions by climbers, the lives of local workers are seldom acknowledged. This disregard perpetuates an unfair system where underprivileged individuals put their lives on the line for the benefit of those seeking to conquer the mountain. Commercial mountaineering has become a profitable business, and the Nepali government willingly profits from it. The climbing permits alone brought in over $5 million this year, but the families of the deceased workers rarely see any significant support. Looking beyond the tragic loss of life, Everest's commercialization has also resulted in an environmental crisis. The mountains are littered with tons of trash left behind by climbers, contributing to the degradation of this pristine ecosystem. Furthermore, the socio-cultural impacts cannot be ignored. The practice of mountaineering on Everest has deep colonial roots, with wealthy individuals staking their claim on the highest point on Earth, often at the expense of local lives and the cultural significance of the Himalayas. Acknowledging the dark truth behind climbing Everest necessitates introspection. and a search for solutions. The status quo is untenable, and it is our responsibility as a global community to address the negative consequences of this pursuit. Is it acceptable for us to continue sacrificing lives and damaging the environment for personal achievement? As participants in the demand for commercial mountaineering, we must reevaluate our actions and consider alternative approaches that value human lives, preserve the environment, and respect local cultures. The discussion surrounding Everest's terrible downside is crucial for effecting change. By engaging in a dialogue and sharing ideas, we can work toward a more responsible and sustainable approach to high-altitude mountaineering. Let us collectively strive for a future where the pursuit of adventure does not come at the expense of lives and the fragile ecosystems we aim to experience. Your thoughts, suggestions, and contributions to this conversation are highly valued. Together, we can make a difference and redefine the significance of climbing Everest. As we navigate the complexities surrounding climbing Everest, it is important to recognize that the issues extend beyond individual climbers or tour operators. Commercial mountaineering has become a complex web of politics, economics, and the exploitation of both human and natural resources. The allure of standing atop the world's highest peak has created a demand that, in turn, perpetuates a system rife with ethical dilemmas. The responsibility for change lies not only with climbers and the mountaineering industry, but also with governments, local communities, and the global public. The Nepali government plays a significant role in regulating climbing activities on Everest, as they are responsible for issuing permits and ensuring the safety of climbers. However, the distribution of funds and support to the local workforce and the families of deceased workers remains an area of concern. Transparency, accountability, and fair compensation should be prioritized to address these pressing issues. Additionally, climbers themselves must be willing to challenge the status quo and consider alternative routes and approaches that minimize the impact on the environment and the local workforce. Mountaineering should be about the pursuit of personal growth, cultural exchange, and respect for nature, rather than an ego-driven conquest that disregards the lives and well-being of others. One potential solution lies in promoting sustainable and responsible tourism in the Himalayas. By diversifying the tourism offerings in the region and highlighting the rich cultural heritage, biodiversity, and spiritual significance of the mountains, local communities can benefit from tourism beyond just commercial mountaineering. This approach would alleviate the heavy reliance on Everest as the primary source of income for many communities, reducing the pressure on the mountain and providing alternative livelihood opportunities. Moreover, implementing stricter regulations and environmental policies can help mitigate the environmental damage caused by climbers. Compulsory waste management and removal systems, stricter enforcement of leave no trace principles, and educational initiatives can create a more conscientious approach to climbing. Collaborative efforts involving climbers, local communities, and environmental organizations can work together to restore and preserve the pristine beauty of Everest and its surroundings. The terrible downside of climbing Everest encompasses a myriad of ethical, environmental, and socio-cultural issues that demand our attention. The current state of commercial mountaineering on Everest perpetuates a system that exploits both the mountain and the local workforce, often at the expense of lives and the fragile ecosystem. As individuals, communities, and governments, it is our collective responsibility to reassess the value we place on personal achievement and consider the wider impact of our actions. We must strive for a future where climbing Everest is conducted in a manner that respects the environment, protects the lives and well-being of the local workforce, and upholds the cultural significance of the Himalayas. Through open dialogue, education, and collaborative efforts, we can pave the way for a more responsible and sustainable approach to high-altitude mountaineering. It is time to shift the narrative surrounding Everest from one focused solely on personal conquest to one centered on empathy, preservation, and respect. Let us embark on this journey together as we aim to preserve the beauty of the mountains for future generations and honor the lives intertwined with their peaks. The terrible downside of climbing Everest can no longer be ignored. It is time for change.